Gary Johnson for BlackMenInAmerica.com. I have an exclusive 6-part interview with the one and only DC sports legend, Mr. Harold Bell. We're going to break this interview up into 6 parts, and I had the opportunity to go over to Harold's studio, if you will, where he has all of his memorabilia, and just sit down for an exclusive interview that I call Being Harold Bell. Harold Bell is a fascinating guy, and he's a DC sports legend. And he started off in the mid-60s, 70s, 80s, and he started off with nothing. And his story is fascinating, how he became #1 in the ratings, how he became a civil rights leader, and how he influenced so many young people through his 50-plus year foundation, Kids in Trouble. A lot of big names who are nationally recognized in sports media today came through the original Inside Sports with Harold Bell. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here's my interview with the one and only, the incomparable Harold Bell. Hey, this is Gary Johnson with BlackMenInAmerica.com. We've got an exclusive interview with DC sports legend, Mr. Harold Bell, and he's allowed us into his studio with all of his memorabilia. So Harold, thank you very much for letting us in. And you are on the heels of a very successful event last week at the Miracle Theater in Washington, D.C., honoring Muhammad Ali. It's been like 45 years. I know you were a friend of Ali's. You were allowed to be in his camp. Just talk a little bit about that and how you thought the event went.
Well, as you said, it's been a 45-year journey. In fact, November will mark, November 30th will mark 45 years of Rumble in the Jungle. Of course, we all know Rumble in the Jungle was Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Muhammad Ali stunned the world when he knocked out George Foreman in the 8th round. Nobody had picked him to win that fight. I was supposed to go over to Zaire with him. I was in Chicago. Me and my partner Rodney Brown went to Chicago to meet with Muhammad because he had wanted to know exactly what did I want to do. So we flew up to Chicago, and of course Pat Patterson, his security man, picked us up at the airport. And we went to the gym, and man, you could hardly get in the gym. People were stacked all around the place, so we went in the side door. And as we were getting in, he was just really, preparing to step aside and go into the dressing room, get a massage. So I was staying out there among everybody else when his brother Rockman came up to me and said, "Harold, the champ wants to see you back in the dressing room." So I went back there, and he was lying down getting a massage, and there was a chair in front of him, so I sat down. So he said, "Harold Bell, what you want to do?" I said, "Man, I want to interview you." He said, "Okay, well, we can do it in Zaire." I said, "Zaire? What you talking about?" He said, "I'm going to Zaire to fight George Foreman." I said, "Yeah?" He said, "Well, we can do the interview there." I said, "Man, I ain't going to Zaire. I'm not going to Zaire." He said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I said, "Man, I'm scared to fly across the ocean." Boy, he made fun of me. Make a long story short, we had dinner that evening, and as I was leaving, he said, "Okay, since you're not going, I will let you be the first to interview me when I get back after I knock this sucker out." So I love he always talking crazy, so I ain't paying no attention to him. So Pat Patterson took Rodney and myself back to the airport, and we came on to D.C. I never told Rodney that I had turned down Zaire, because he would have went off, man. So we went on back to D.C., and I waited till we got at D.C. to tell Rodney that the champ had invited us to go to Zaire, man. Of course, he went off. But anyway, make a long story short, that night, I went down to Constitution Hall with Hattie, Roy Jefferson, and his wife, and we went down there to watch it on closed circuit. And of course, man, we were sitting up in the balcony, man, and man, when he knocked him out, I almost fell over the rail, and Roy grabbed me. I was so excited, man, that he had upset Big George Foreman. So now I'm lying in the bed. 5 days later, after the fight, raining outside. In fact, we had moved over here where we are now, and the phone rang. Hattie was asleep, and I was asleep too. So I woke up and I said, "Who's calling, man?" He said, "Let me speak to Harold Bell." I said, "Man, who's calling?" He said, "Fool, this is the heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali." I said, straight up in the bed. I said, "Oh my God." I thought I was dreaming. I said, "What's up, champ?" He said, "You still want to do that interview?" I said, "Yeah, man, I want to do the interview." He said, "Well, I'm in New York. Bring your camera crew, and we'll do it Monday morning." That was Sunday night when he called. Now, I'm broke. I ain't got no money. I don't get paid till Friday. I ain't got no camera crew. I mean, I got Rodney and them, but it's about 10 or 11 o'clock. I got to call Rodney. So, man, as God will have it, I called Rodney, and they were in the PBS studios doing a thing for Black History Month. And I said, "Rodney, guess what? Muhammad Ali just called me." He said, "Fool, ain't no Muhammad Ali called you." I said, "Man, he just got off the phone." He said, "Okay, what's the problem?" I said, "Man, he wants us to come to New York and do the interview." He said, "Okay." I said, "Man, I ain't got no money, man." He said, "Look, Will is here. Will has the credit card. I got the car. And PBS got the cameras." So they took the cameras out of PBS, picked me up about midnight, and we rolled up to New York. We got there about 6:30 that morning, stopped and got hot chocolate, coffee, whatever, and went to the hotel. And I called him, man, up in his room, his number he had given me. And he said, I said, "Champ, Harold Bell." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm downstairs." He said, "Come on up, 7th floor." So we got on the elevator and we went up, and there he was standing out in the hall combing his hair. He said, "Didn't I tell you I was going to knock that sucker out? Didn't I tell you?" He said, "Didn't I tell you?" So he said, "Come on in." So we went on in, man. They set the cameras up, and he and I just sit there shooting the bull for about a half hour. Got the camera straight, man. And let me tell you something, man. That was history in itself. Never in the history of professional sports had undisputed heavyweight champion invited 2, 3 unknown journalists to come out and interview him. This had never happened before. It happened with the big boys, but just think, when he got to New York, he didn't call Oprah, he didn't call Ed Bradley, Brian Gumbel, or Howard Cosell. He called Harold Bell. Man, this guy just came out of the biggest fight of his life, and he thought about me and called my number. And I tell you, man, one of the greatest interviews that I've ever done. And of course, this is 2019, 45 years ago, man. In November will mark the Rumble of the Jungle, which led to the Miracle Theater where we were on Tuesday night, Gary.
Okay. This concludes part 1 of our 6-part interview with Harold Bell. When we come back, we all know about the public Harold Bell. When we come back for part 2, we're going to learn a little bit more about the private side of Harold Bell. All right, we're back with our exclusive interview with Harold Bell. And as I promised, we're going to talk about the private side of Harold Bell. So, Harold, you are a native Washingtonian who grew up in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure what, 2nd, 3rd generation? Tell us about
4th generation.
4th generation.
4th generation. And to be very truthful, I'm a 4th generation Washingtonian. My great-grandfather laid the first brick to build Mount Airy Baptist Church on North Capitol and L Street. In fact, today they are celebrating our family being in the church 113 years. My family came up in the church. My heroes were my grandmother and my mother. My heroes were not black athletes, and my grandmother raised us in the early years because my father was a Rolling Stone. And my mother carried us up to my grandmother's to raise us. So we were in church, man, Mount Airy Baptist Church 3 or 4 times a week, because My grandmother played the organ. My uncles and aunts sung in the choir. Um, Actually, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, because my mother was pregnant with me 6 months. She was 6 months pregnant when my father decided to go to New York, and she followed him up there. And I was born in Brooklyn, New York, in Kings County Hospital. I know absolutely nothing about Brooklyn, but I was up there for at least a year or two before my mother finally decided to come back to D.C. My brothers were living with my grandmother at the time. I had my older brother, Bobby, was with my grandmother. So she carried me up there to live with my grandmother. And of course, that was the best experience that I could have had because Grandma Bell laid the foundation. Her and my aunts, man. I had two uncles, man, but they, my aunts were the warriors. they were the warriors, man. They taught us about the game called life, gave us discipline, man, and some purpose in life. The church was great. My great uncle Earl Tyler was the preacher after my great grandfather passed, and they passed on the torch. The Tyler House at North Capitol and New York Avenue is named after my uncle, Reverend Earl Tyler. So I got this community base that I have reaching back from my grandmother and my uncle, because on Wednesdays we used to go over to surgeon quarters to see the sick and shut in, or go up to the hospital, up to a Freeman's Hospital. So I learned early about giving back when it came to the community. And like I said, my heroes could not hit a baseball out of the stadium, throw a touchdown 60 yards in the air, or shoot a jump shot. My heroes were black women. And I'm talking about my grandmother, my mother, and my aunts, man. That's who my heroes were. So yeah, we learned a lot, man, and the man that I am today, man, because of these strong black women.
Well, that's great to hear, because as you look back now, clearly, from what I gather, you grew up with a lot of love.
Yeah.
But economically, how was the family doing?
Economically, we never knew anything about being poor. I mean, we never realized that, man. We had so much fun, man, growing up on J Street in Northeast, where my grandmother's house was. We played, I went to Burrillville Elementary School. My grandmother and aunts didn't have to come to school to see about us, because that's the last thing we wanted. So we came out of a very loving home, man, and I played football in the street. We learned how it was, man. I never knew anything about racism. I never knew anything about being poor, man. I mean, our family looked out for each other. Folks in the neighborhood looked out for each other, There was never any problem, man. So all this stuff that we're seeing today, that's what I say, these young people growing up today don't know what they really miss.
Now, here's something that a lot of people, unless they read the feature that we did on you some time ago, your relationship with former President Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Yeah. Well, man, that's a story in itself. Growing up in a Northeast housing project called Parkside, we eventually moved away from my grandmother. My mother finally graduated. She graduated from Mendoza High School. She had good typing skills and writing skills, and she was able to get a job in the government, man, with the General Accounting Office. So she was able to qualify for a house in the Northeast housing project called Parkside, and she came and got us from my grandmother. And I never forget, man, how much when we had to leave Grandma Bell. There was my older brother Bobby. There was me and Bull, my younger brother Earl. So my grandmother made my mother an offer that she could not refuse. She said, okay, you can take Harold and Earl, and I'm keeping Bobby, because Bobby was the first, that's who she loved. She loved Bobby. And buddy, we cried and gray as hell, man. We did not want to leave Grandma Bell's house. And Grandma Bell said, y'all just shut up, man. You ain't gonna be but 10 minutes away from here. Y'all can come up here anytime you want. So my mother took us over to Parkside, 715 Kenilworth Terrace, Northeast. I'll never forget that. When we turned into the housing project, it was an all dirt road. And we found out later that it used to be a racetrack. And the dump was down at the other end. But, that was an experience. We kind of went wild when we got over there with my mother. It was a tough time keeping up with me and Earl. And but man, in Parkside, growing up in Parkside, Mother, it was a great time. Another environment where people cared about each other. We could leave our doors open at night, our windows up, man. Come on, ain't about no air conditioning. Man, we slept with our doors open and our windows up, man. And in the playground, Gary was like our babysitter. We could go down to the playground, and our parents didn't have to worry about where we were at. We at the playground, man. We played 12 and under baseball, basketball. We went to other playgrounds and played them, man. And we had some great, great teachers. I was just thinking about one of those guys today because he has a young man, I guess it's his cousins or nephews or something, but he's teaching in the D.C. public schools, and his birthday was today. And I remember his uncle Freddie Bethel, man. We had Freddie Bethel, Jakey Matthews, Walter Brooks. These guys, man, were tough on us, man. They kept us grounded, man. You didn't get away with no having the attitudes or nothing, because they didn't care nothing about you. And I think they played a lot in my development, man, helped prepare me for high school, man. So when I think about Parkside, I think about there were difficult times. My mother lost her job after about 2 years. What's that thing called? The last hired, the first fired. And she ended up getting fired, and we had to go on welfare, man. And it was tough, man. Earl and I had to find a way to make it. I started carrying groceries on the weekends, going over to the other side of tracks, excuse me, at the Safeway, carrying white folks' groceries, man. And Earl was a little thug. He would go down on the 8th Street corner in Northeast, and they would hit cash registers, him and his boys, Dave Bing and some other guys he grew up with, man. They would hit the cash register. And I tried it one time and things got slow, but it was too much drama for me. I told him, hey, man, y'all can have this. I was nothing but the lookout guy, but I said, man, I can't do this. So I went back to the Safeway, and Gary, on the weekends, my mother used to have these card games, Pitty Pat and Tunk, and she cut $5 on $1 or 10 cents. And she sell chicken dinners and bootleg liquor, beer and stuff. And my mother was raking in the money, man. So we were doing good. But finally, jealousy came in, and all of a sudden the cops started raiding our house 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I seen them take my mother out in handcuffs while me and Earl was sitting on the steps crying. And my mother would always look back and she said, don't worry, boys. I'll be back in time for you guys to get you guys to church. And that man, I never forgot that, man. But we had one raid on our house of the Wall family lived across the street, and they would send one of the sisters over to stay with me and Earl until my mother got back home from the precinct. And this time, Jody Ward came over to one of the sons, and he was talking to me. He said, Harold, how about going out to the golf course, man, and caddy? And I didn't know about no caddy. I said, caddy? He said, yeah, carry golf bags. I said, okay, I tried. So I went out to Burning Tree Golf Course. A whole different world, folks. You hear what I'm saying? In Bethesda, Maryland.
All right, hold that thought. When we come back, you're going to tell us about whole different world in Richard Nixon. All right, we're back with part 3. So when Harold left us for part 2, you were going out to a whole new world as a caddy. So take it from there.
Okay, it was an altogether different experience. I had never been in an environment like that. It was an all-white, exclusive golf course and men only. I mean, this is where the rich and powerful men played at Burning Tree Golf Course, And so I went out there and became a caddy. It was a funny thing because they didn't even allow their white wives to play out there. But on Mondays, they allowed their black caddies to play. We could play on the golf course on Mondays. So a lot of us learned how to play golf on Mondays at Burning Tree Golf Course. And one of the things my boys told me when I got there, look, Harold, stay away from Petey Green. Don't go nowhere near Petey Green. Peter Green was a hustler. He would crap cars down deep in the woods. He didn't come out there to carry. He came out there to set suckers up and win their money after they're gone out there on that golf course all day. So anyway, several weeks later, I go out to the golf course and I get in early. So now I got to wait for my homeboys because we all like to ride back on the bus together, stay together, and figure it was kind of safe then because there still was a lot of things going on. So we kind of hung together. So anyway, I'm waiting for my boys to come in. I said, man, let me go down here and see what this Petey Green's all about, man. Can't about no Petey Green. I came out of a hustling household, shooting crap and playing cards. I do all that stuff. Man, I went down there and there was a Petey Green. I was broke, man, within 15, 20 minutes. He had taken all my money. And then he gave me $2. He said, Little Bell, here's $2. You can get some little tavern hamburgers and your bus fare back home. I need my money back when you come back out here. So now I go up to the front, man. I don't want to see my homeboys because they done won't forewarn me. Stay away from Petey Green. But knucklehead got to go down and find out what Petey Green's all about. So I started walking toward the parking lot, and I heard the pro, Max Elvin, call me. He said, hey, Little Bell. Little Bell. So I turned around, and he said, called me, waved me over. I said, what's up? He said, look, I got 2 bags here. They're not going to play but 9 holes. So, you can get in and out. Well, I thought about it, man, this is great because Valentine's Day was coming up, and I ain't had no money to buy my mom, my girl, a Valentine's Day card or candy. So that was right on time. So I put them 2 bags on my shoulder. I started walking toward the first tee, and I heard somebody say, hey, Harold, are you ready for an adventure? And I turn around, and I see these 2 white men smiling at me. And one of them was the Vice President of the United States of America, Richard Milhouse Nixon, and Attorney General William Rogers. So I said, man, just come on, just give me the money. Let's go. But after 3 holes, I found out what he was talking about. Was I ready for an adventure? His ball stayed in the woods, in the trees, more than the birds and the bees. Every time I look up, man, his ball was in the woods. But what happened, Attorney General Rogers was teaching him the game of golf. Attorney General Rogers was a scratch golfer, man. He could play. So anyway, we come out of the woods, and I said, man, I sure be glad when this 9 holes is over. We get up to the 9th hole, man. It's almost dark. And Vice President hit another ball in the woods. And we go in the woods and we come out. So he came out and hollered, hey, Bill, let's go 9 more. I said, oh, my God, he didn't say that. 9 more holes. And, man, ended up going 9 more holes. I don't know how we got around it, man. It was dark. We coming up to the 18th tee. And I look at the clubhouse, man. They got lights on in the clubhouse. And the Vice President hit another ball in the woods. He said, okay, Harold, that's it. Let's go. So we walk on in. So I'm standing out there, man. All my homeboys gone. I'm trying to figure out, I don't know how I'm going to get home, man. Because all the golfers are gone, too. But there's always some golfers in there playing cards. They're playing pinochle, They take a shower, come out, play pinochle, and eat a sandwich and stuff. So I'm waiting out there for the cooks to come out or somebody so I can get a ride home. So anyway, the Vice President comes out and he pays me. He said, Harold, okay, man, we enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. I said, I hope not. I hope not. So anyway, I am waiting for a ride, and who comes out of the clubhouse but the Vice President Rogers? And the first thing the Vice President says to me, hey, Harold, do you need a ride? I said, yes, sir, I surely do. So he said, come on. Man, I went out in the parking lot, man. There was a Cadillac, man, as long as a block. I had never seen a Cadillac that long. During this time, you got to remember, he didn't have Secret Service men with him. It was just he and Rogers. And Mr. Rogers went in, got in the driver's side. Vice President got in the passenger side. And I opened the door to get in the back. Man, it looked like an apartment back there. I said, whoa, whoa. So we started to drive on into the city, man. And the Vice President, he's looking back at me, he's smiling. He got something on his mind. So he said, Harold, where did you live? I live in Northeast Washington, sir. I live in a place called Parkside, a development called Parkside. He said, wow. He said, do you have any brothers and sisters? I said, yes, sir. I got 2 brothers. My mom's a single mom, and she's raising the 3 of us. So, man, he said, wow. So he said, you play any sports? Man, what did he say that for?
Uh-oh.
I'm in my heyday, 1957. I'm rolling that finger. I'm playing everything, football, basketball, and I stuck out my chest and said, yes, sir, I play football, basketball, and baseball. So he looked at me and laughed. He said, he got me there. This when he got me. He said, how are your grades, son? I said, oh, my God. I said, oh, my God. I said, they're all right. He said, look, Harold, you got to get your grades. Those books will carry you further than a football, basketball, or baseball, man. And we had a great conversation, man. This is the first time I ever had an opportunity to sit down with a high-powered white man, and he cared something about me because he showed an interest in me.
Right.
So anyway, I got on the bus at Westmoreland Circle, got home, and told my boys what happened. I caddied for Nixon and everything. It wasn't no big deal. But we became friends, and I caddied for him the next year, 1958. And he was going one way, I was going another. I was trying to get out of high school. I was messing up, flunking everything. And I remember when we got to the bus stop at Westmoreland Circle, I was supposed to graduate. He got out in the car and gave me an envelope. He said, Harold, I'm going to be leaving the country, and I want you to continue in school and get your grades and everything. And we'll stay in touch. Well, when I got on the bus, I opened up the envelope. It was a $50 bill, and the first time I ever seen a $50 bill.
Oh, wow.
They handed me a $50 bill, man, and of course, I didn't graduate till next year, 1959. Ended up going down to Winston-Salem State, where my coach, Big House Gaines, my high school coach, Dave Brown, who helped me get through high school because I was flunking out and had to end up graduating from Fairmont Heights because I had messed up at Spingarn. But went down there and, did the best that I could. My mother was in and out of the hospital, St. Elizabeth. She had a mental breakdown with just so much pressure on her, trying to raise 3 guys, man, and hard-head guys, man. And I had to go out and chase my dreams for the NFL. And then eventually came back home because it didn't work out. And came back home, and guess who got me a job?
Who's that?
Petey Green. I was soon
to be legend.
Yeah, soon to be legend. I'm up at 7T, hanging out at the Howell Theater. That's how we usually do. And I just seen my homeboy Marvin Gaye. Marvin, of course, was a dear friend that I had met during high school. Always wanted to be an athlete. He couldn't play nothing, couldn't play dead, but wanted to be an athlete. Well, he could sing back even then. But he told me, he said, man, I'm doing okay, man. I'm getting ready to get out of town, man. I'm going to be gone. I'm with a group. And then, of course, Petey came up and asked me what I was doing. I said, man, I'm home looking for a job. And he got me a job with United Planning Organization as a neighborhood worker. They hired 3 neighborhood workers, Petey Green, H. Rat Brown, and Harold Bell. How about that?
All right, that's a good place for us to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to come back and find out from Harold Bell how he became a legend and a D.C. pioneer for civil rights. All right, Gary Johnson here. We're back for part 4 of our exclusive interview with Harold Bell. I wanted to start off by talking about, the dozens and dozens of nationally known writers, celebrities, commentators, sports reporters who have, and athletes who made their way through you and your radio show, and they are like on the national scene, and in some cases household names. Mm-hmm. But you aren't there yet, and maybe that ship has sailed. What's your take on it?
Well, my take is this, man, is that, Muhammad Ali, I met Muhammad Ali in 1967 while I was working with the United Planning Organization. I was standing in front of Ben's Chili Bowl, and Petey and Rat Brown came by and said, man, you going to the meeting? And Petey slipped and said, man, Muhammad Ali is up on, Muhammad Ali is up on the campus of Howard University. I said, what? I said, man, I'm going up there. We said, well, we're going to the meeting, man, because the meeting was with the executive director, Mr. Banks. I thought I was going to see the champ. So I went up to Howard University, man, and there was Muhammad Ali with hundreds of kids, man, hanging on his every word as he talked about the racism in America, his stand against the war in Vietnam, and it was fantastic. So I made my way up to the front, man, so I could look right in his mouth, you know. So he went on for about another half hour while I was up there. Then he stopped and said, "Okay, gang, I got to get out of here." He said, I want somebody to take me on a tour of Washington. I want to go on a walking tour. Who's going to take me?" I know he probably wasn't one of them little girls. But I said, "I'll take you, champ. Come on, go with me." So he followed me, and we walked down the U Street corridor, man. We walked down the Georgia Avenue corridor to the U Street corridor, man. And man, I looked behind us, it was like a parade, man. I looked behind all these people, all these people following us, man. Cars honking at him, women getting out, running over and kissing him. Man, it was something else. But he was so real, man. And we got to talking about, you know, what I was doing. I wasn't on radio or anything then, but I said, man, I'm out here working with youth gangs and at-risk children. He loved that. He said, yeah, man, stay out there. So we got down to 7ties, started shadow boxing with a friend of mine named Harvey, and we just had a great time, man. And that, man, really, we became great friends. We became great friends, man. And of course, the next time that I saw him, I had made my way into radio, you know. 1972, when Harry Barnett, an attorney for George Foreman, and J.D. Bethair, who wrote that big story up there on the wall, asked me to ride to Cleveland with him because Muhammad Ali is going to be putting on an charity exhibition for Children's Hospital. So I said, man, they said, come on, man, it's your first year on the radio. Come on, let's go. So I jumped in the car with him and went up and walked into the hotel where they were staying, and Muhammad Ali was having like a little press conference, standing up, you know, making jokes. And I walked through the door, and he yelled, "Harold Bell, what you doing this far away from home?" I almost fell out. I said, "This guy, remember, it's been 5 years, man." So everybody started looking at me, man. I went over, and of course, man, that was history, man. You know. He told me this is where he gave Don King his first break. Don was from Cleveland, and Lloyd Price, who was the real, this guy was Mr. Rhythm and Blues himself, the singer. He was the one that introduced Muhammad Ali to Don King, and Don King came up with this promotional idea about Children's Hospital, and that's where Don got his first break, man. And I tell you, I got my first break there too because I became one of his favorite people. I became the chosen one, man. And I always, through his brother, because I met Rockmon in Cleveland, I met Lloyd Price in Cleveland, and we were like family, man. We were like family, looked out for each other, man. They kind of took me under their wing, and it was just a marvelous time, man, with a great human being, a guy that if he gave you his word, you could carry it to the bank. A lot of people misused him. I mean, they took from him, but he didn't care. He didn't care about materialistic things. You know what I mean? He cared about the spiritual things, man, and about you being a decent human being. And that's what I enjoyed most about being his friend, man, is that's what got me to where I am now, because Muhammad Ali gave me instant credibility. Red Auerbach gave me instant credibility. Bert Sugar gave me instant credibility. And that's where I got that phrase from that I use to close my show, that every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy, because of Red Auerbach and Bert Sugar and Richard Nixon. Mm-hmm. You know, Richard Nixon. I end up working with the Roving Leader Program, DC Recreation, and I left UPO and went with the DC Recreation Department because the United Planning Organization had given a grant to hire more roving leaders. And with that grant, they said, you got to take Harold Bell. So I got lucky and was able to go work with an elite group, man, the Roving Leader Program. And I was working out the street with at-risk children, and I'm standing up at Ben's Chili Bowl again, and somebody yells, "Hey, Harold, your man is down there touring the ride area." I said, "What you talking about, my man?" Say, "The President of the United States, fool." I said, "What?" So I run, man. I'm going to run down 7th Street, and I'm going to see my friend, Richard Nixon. I got down there, man. Secret Service would let me nowhere near him, man. I said, man, just tell him it's Harold Bell. I used to caddy for him at Burning Tree Golf Course. He said, write him a letter. So I did. I wrote him a letter. 2 weeks later, I get a letter from the White House from the President of the United States because I had written him a letter and telling him about what I was doing. He was saying how proud he was to see that I returned to the young people whose lives once resembled my very own. And he said he'd be in touch. 2 weeks later, we get another letter inviting us to the White House for lunch, my wife Hattie and I. So we went to the White House, and man, our pictures went all over the world. It caption read, Nixon invites his caddy to the White House.
I think I read about that in Jet.
Yeah, it was in Jet. That's right.
Yeah,
big
Jet
story.
Magazine.
Jet Magazine did a big story on us. But number one, my brother Earl had joined the military after graduating from Smegon High School. He got himself together and he joined the military. Went to Germany, became the heavyweight boxing champion of Germany, and became a military policeman. And they were having plenty of racial problems over there at the time. And my brother led a group into the city, man, because they were only letting the white servicemen into these disco joints, you know. So my brother raised hell, went in and got tired and fed up with the military, man, because they weren't being treated right. And he decided to come home and join the Metropolitan Police Department, which you are quite aware, because your mom was there for many years.
And my godmother and a whole bunch of other family friends.
Wow.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to take this seat that Mr. Bell is sitting in and turn it into a hot seat, where we're going to do call and response. We're going to call out some names and we're going to get his response. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back with our exclusive interview with Mr. Harold Bell, DC sports legend. And as promised, Mr. Bell is strapped in to our hot seat. And so at this point, I'm going to call out a name and you just respond however you want to.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The clock is on. John Thompson.
Wow. Well, John Thompson and I go way
Hall
back.
of Fame basketball coach,
That's
John
right.
Thompson.
First black to win a national title in NCAA basketball. I remember John Thompson when he was at Brown Junior High School, and Mr. Trigg was his coach. And John was just a youngster, and we used to play basketball down at Brown. That was one of the main places in the city where the big boys played. And John Thompson was just a youngster, you know. I was playing with the big boys, and John finally, when he was able to get on the court, he was a big line, guy then, you know. So I chose him to be on my team one day. And he decided he could go outside and shoot jump shots. And I stopped the game. I said, look, man, you ain't shoot no jump shots out here. You got to go up there and get rebounds. So he poked out his mouth. So I told him, I said, get the hell off the court, man. Go up there and sit on the hill. I made him go up and sit on the hill until his boys came, Sandy Freeman and Batman. And they got him back on the court because I couldn't deal with Sandy Freeman and Batman. They could whoop me. So I made him go up there and sit on the grass until, of course, they came. And we became good friends over the years. And John went on to coach high school. He went to Providence College where he did real well. Drafted by the Boston Celtics. He didn't make it because he didn't have any heart. John was a big, tall guy, had a soft jump shot, but he just didn't have heart. And Red ended up putting him out there. What you do when you put a guy out there with other teams can pick him up, Gary?
On waivers or practice squad?
Oh no,
that's football.
He put him out there on waivers. Another team was coming into being, and they made two of their three players available, and that team could select from that.
Right, because I know
from the Celtics.
Thompson was a backup to Bill Russell.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he backed up on the bench.
Right.
Yeah, but he told you he was a backup to he was a backup to Bill Russell. But anyway, John finally decided to retire from basketball when Red put him out there to be picked up by another team, and he came back to DC and coached high school basketball at St. Anthony's, and then he got the job at Georgetown. And I was on the air by that time, and I was doing my thing. And my wife Hattie and I would go over there and support him, man, but he couldn't win a game. So I decided that I would give him 5 minutes to promote Georgetown basketball because the media wasn't giving him any play at all. The Washington Post, Star, no television time. So I gave him 5 minutes on Inside Sports every Monday to promote Georgetown basketball. He came on, or one of his players, and hung in there with him. And once he started winning, I became a Nike representative. I was the first one in this town to become a Nike representative. I met the Nike rep, John Phillips, in Philadelphia at the Summer League. And Sonny introduced me to him, and John said, "How do you like to be our man in Washington, D.C.?" I said, "Yeah, man, love to." So I became the Nike representative on M Street. And at that time, I decided, man, you know what would be a good thing, man, to go up to Georgetown and talk to Clarence Big House Games about putting on the Nike shoes, you know, and outfits, man. That would be a feather in my cap with Nike, you know. So I went up to Georgetown and to meet with John and tell him what I would like for him to do. And he said, "Man, that's a great idea, Harold." He said, let's meet tomorrow. And so before I could walk back down to the M Street store, which was just 10 minutes away, I got back down there and the phone rang, and one of the reps in the store said, "Harold, it's John Phillips in Portland." So I got on the phone with John and said, "Harold, did you say you were going up to see John Thompson today?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that brother can't call out here and made his own deal." I said, "What?" Made his own deal. And man, John Thompson, I had no love for him since. He's still on the board of directors with Nike, man. But John was that type of guy. John was a shrewd guy. You couldn't trust him. His word meant absolutely nothing. He teamed up with David Falk, and he made plenty of money under the table. David Falk would give him kickbacks for the players from Georgetown that he represented, and a whole lot of other things. But John Thompson became the first minority coach to win an NCAA basketball championship. But he came through Inside Sports, and once he got there, I found out that he hired a white guy to do the play-by-play. So that's how things go sometimes. But you just move on. But I have not forgotten.
Okay. All right, we're gonna do a little more rapid fire. Somebody else who I heard came through Inside Sports, or at least you had some leverage, and that's Sugar Ray Leonard.
Oh yeah. That's another story. Ray Leonard, of course, you know about him winning in the Olympics 1976. Ray was one of the young men that I watched grow up, and always one a real nice kid. Was a very, very, very nice gentleman. And Ray won the medal gold medal in 1976. And of course, he was all over the media, you know. I think he had his kid on his shoe.
7-Up commercial.
7-Up commercial.
He was a media darling.
He had media darling. So when he came home from the Olympics, he thought that he was coming home to a ticker tape parade. But once he got back to Washington, D.C., the media gave him the blues for having a baby out of wedlock. Ray went in the house and would not come out. I'm playing tennis down in Anacostia one evening. I look outside the gate. There's Jinx Morton, Dave Jacobs, and my buddy Melvin Jackson. Call him Weasel. Hell of an athlete. So I said, "What them guys doing there? They don't play no tennis." So I stopped and I went out. I said, "What's up, man?" So Jinx said, "Well, Ray, man, won't come out of the house." I said, "What you mean he won't come out of the house?" "Well, man, he's lost his self-esteem." I lost his self-esteem? I said, "He won't come out, man." He said, we need for you to go over there and talk to him because he respects you. So I said, okay. So the next morning, I went there and knocked on the door. Ray opens the door, tears in his eyes. I said, man, I can't tell you what I said to him. But anyway, I said, man, get your medal around your neck, put your clothes on, and come on, I want you to go with me. I had called one of my principals, Mr. Cousins at Harrison Elementary, and told him that I was bringing Ray up there to talk to the kids. So find a group of kids for him to talk to. So that's what I started doing. I started taking Ray out to different elementary schools because these young kids ain't had the same hang-ups that we adults had,
right.
You know? So he was able to build his self-esteem. I took him on my show and let him co-host it, and my wife gave both of us hell because we were messing up the King's English. So she brought Ray a book called The Gold of Leaves of Poems, and we got Ray to start reading out loud to himself. And of course, Ray went on to become the chosen one in boxing. And when he beat Benitez, I'm sitting on a show with Chris Thomas co-hosting in that night. When he calls on the air, and somebody say, Ray Leonard's on line 2, Harold. So I pick up the telephone, and he says, Harold Bell, I'm the welterweight champion of the world today because you were there when no one else was. You know, Jinx Morton, wasn't no Mike Trainer, wasn't no Charlie Brockman, was nobody else, man. So, but he forgot to. Let's put it leave it like that.
Okay, we'll leave it like that then. Let's jump to Doug Williams.
Doug Williams, good old boy from the South. Of course, he came here to Washington in 1986. Robert Piper, who was from Grambling, an alumnus of Grambling, was a good friend of Doug's. And Bob Piper was a high school coach here in D.C. So Bob and I had become friends. But Bob had gone back down to Grambling. So he told Doug, look, if you're going to D.C., I want you to hook up with Harold Bell because he'll keep all the freeloaders off you and keep you straight. So that's the first couple of years that was Doug. Played Santa Claus for the kids. I gave him a community foundation. But also, when he won the Super Bowl, became the MVP, he disappeared. So, you know, that's how it happens in our community. We forget real easy.
All right. Kathy Hughes.
Wow.
She's a media powerhouse now.
Media powerhouse. Owns Radio 1, TV 1.
Urban One,
all over the country. I met Kathy Hughes when she was nothing but a receptionist at WHUR Radio. I introduced her to Larry Brown, Earl Monroe, all of them. And she asked me to be a big brother to her son, Alfred. I said, no problem. So I took Alfred under my wing and I put Nikes on both of them. I sent Alfred up to Sunny Hills camp. I sent him down to Winston-Salem to Big House games and Earl Monroe's camp. And I did all those little things, laying the foundation. And of course, you know where Kathy is now. She forgot. She got involved in a lot of stuff and got to smelling herself, man. So that's another one of those stories. They never reach back. They forget.
There seems to be a common theme here about memory loss or forgetting. Let's see, news legend, Jim Vance.
Oh yeah, that was my partner, man. Jim and I were tennis partners. I mean, I got so many pictures of Jim at my celebrity fashion shows, Christmas toy parties, Roy Jefferson Reading Center. We did a lot of things together. And Jim, one of the nicest people you ever want to meet, but he had a problem, man. And a lot of the guys around me had those problems, drug problems, alcohol abuse problems, but never bothered me. As long as they didn't ask me to do any of those things, we got along fine. And what happened, one year, man, one of my boys, see, I was protected. Everybody will know, well, how did Harold Bell stay out of trouble? Because I had a group of folks in the streets that had my back. You know, they had names like Slippery Jackson, Philadelphia J, Dog Turner, Cornell, Zach. I mean, these guys had my back. So nobody messed with me, you know, because these guys knew I was all about the kids. That's one thing about, man, even the gangsters love kids, you know. But anyway, Jim Vance was out there, and one of my buddies, who's no longer here, came up to me one night and gave me a check from Jim Vance. Jim had written for the drugs. He said, look, Harold, this is my business. I love Jim too. He said, but I can't tell him to stop doing business with me. I know that's your man, and you need to talk to him and get him some help, you know? So that night, I took that check and went up to Channel 4, and Jim wasn't expecting me. He came out and said, man, what's happening? I said, no, let's go have a sandwich, man. So we went, and we sat down. And I got right to the point, man. I said, look, man, don't tell me what you're not doing. But this was a copy of the check that my man had given me. And Jim took the check and didn't speak to me again for 20 years. He tried to apologize. I ran into him when the Howard Theater opened up, the opening. He was up there doing the camera shoot and saw me and came over and said, man, let's have lunch. And we need to talk. So Hattie and I went by the station one day. We were up at American University, stopped by. He came down, spent some time with us. He said, okay, man, we're going to lunch down on K Street. He gave us a time, and that day we were supposed to go to lunch, he called and canceled, and we never got together. But he was one of my favorite people, man.
Can you think of any names of people who came through you who did not forget?
Can't think of one.
Wow.
And you seen the list.
Oh, the list is long.
The list is long.
We don't have enough time for me to do hot seat
I'm
anymore.
telling you, man.
Wow.
I can't. I think one of the nicest guys, but he got caught up to was David Aldridge. David Aldridge did a story on me on the NBA, and great story, man. The story was great, but then he came up with this one line that turned me off. Say, Harold Bell gives the blues to the sacred cows, like John Thomas. That's sacred cows? Man, he said, now the thing about the NBA, that column go all over the country. They don't know Harold Bell, but they know John Thompson, so they would look at me and say, oh, this is one of those old jealous brothers.
And them haters.
Yeah, one of them haters, So I had a falling out with Dave. Hey, man, one of the things I think about Dave, James Brown, Michael Wilbon, Dave Aldridge, Kevin Blackstone. Somebody said Kevin Blackstone just had written a story on one of the Adrian Davis, the boxer. But man, I had to go to James Brown and get $1,000 to pay my rent. I had to go to Dave Aldridge, Michael Wilbon. It's like begging. You know what I mean? It's like begging, man. So for me to make it to where I was last Tuesday,
right,
was against all odds. I'm telling you, folks. For me to get my interview with Muhammad Ali on the big screen, man, that was a blessing from God, man. And a lot of people, man, it may not have been big people, man, but reached out for me to help me, man, when I had needed $100, $500 or whatever, man. But that's what got me to where I am today. And I guess they didn't expect me to live this long. I'm 81 years old. They didn't expect me to be here this long. But I just want to thank those folks who supported me. And, hey, man, I am truly blessed. I owe all of this to God and to my wife, Hattie, of 51 years. Could not have made it without her, man. So it's not over yet. As they say, it's not over till the fat lady sings. This was just a stepping stone. With people asked me to bring the Muhammad Ali documentary to New Orleans, to Louisville. So that's what we may do in November, take it out there. But I want to thank those who supported me, like Gary, and of course, Gary, I've been with you now for over 10 years, and you've seen all the stories that I've written. Has anyone ever seriously challenged anything that I've said?
Never.
Never.
And when we come back, we're going to go into more detail, because I want to talk about your association on blackmeninamerica.com.
Okay.
All right. Okay, we're back with Harold Bell, and I mentioned I want to talk about our association on blackmeninamerica.com. Over the years, since 2001, blackmeninamerica.com started out as an idea I had as a result of the Million Man March. It morphed into a website and an online magazine, and we probably have had 2 or 3 dozen columnists over the years. Probably maybe 8 to 12 that have been consistent. Throughout the history of the website, the most, and we have a lot of content on that site, the most read columnist statistically is Harold Bell. It's the sports, it's the politics, it doesn't matter. I look at the marketing, I look at the statistics, and over the year, every year, it's been Harold Bell's articles that are the most read. Now, some of those articles are very controversial to some. I have never, ever had anyone call the office or email me and complain or say that's not true. Never. So what do you say? How do you think you got to be the most read columnist on the site consistently, and it's not even close. What's your reaction?
Well, that's really a compliment in itself, especially when I heard that from you. We're talking about 50 of the most popular African American websites, and you rank like number 5 or something.
Anywhere
like that?
between 5 and 24.
Okay.
At any given time.
Yeah, at any given time, man, and that is a compliment. I think what that all goes back to my grandmother. She always told me, son, whatever you do, I don't know how far you're going with where in this media thing, but remember, I always want you to tell the truth, because a lie will change 1,000 times, but the truth never changes. And that is how I have carried myself throughout life, all through media, to tell the truth, to do your homework. These folks don't do their homework. See, what happens, I have found out, Gary, is this, that when I came into media, I was a community legend before I got to the media. You understand? When I got into radio, I already knew the community. These folks that are on these jobs now, you look at them, Bruce Johnson, Sam Ford, Leon Harris, Winston Martin, you look at any of them, they never did anything in the community. You understand? And then once they get on radio or TV or write a column like Cortland Malloy, Kobe King and them, they don't know nothing about the community, but they come experts for the black community, and that is the most difficult part, and that is why I have been so popular. I remember when Donald Huff, who used to write for the Washington Post, he wrote a column in the Washington Post that said, Harold Bell gets his ratings from the street. Yeah, that's where I found out if I was really telling the truth, was I really reaching my people, And because they want to tell you, hey Harold, you offline, man. Come on, man, that's not true. So that is how I got my ratings. I remember one too, Gary. Once I became a sports talk show personality, I remember George Solomon called me down to the Washington Post. He was the sports editor. He said, Harold, we're going to do a column on you, man, because you're the pioneer. You did all this stuff. I said, okay, that sounds good. I would love it. So 2 weeks later, he called me back down to Washington Post and said, well, this is what we decided. We decided to do a column on all the blacks in sports. I said, huh? But see, I already knew the game. They try to lump us all together. So you know what I told George? You go ahead and do it on the rest. I don't want to be no part of it. And I walked away from it. I didn't want it like that, because I get tired of them, all of us, lumping all of us in one little mold. So 2 weeks later, he called me back and said, okay, Harold. Now, I had never heard of this guy in my life. He said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a story on all of you. And then we're going to do a story on page 2 or 3 on just you. I said, what? He said, yeah, we're going to do a story, Martin Wise, Glenn Harris, we put out everybody. And they did. That's the first time you can look around this room and see those stories right here on my wall. They did a story with me and Glenn Harris. Our photos were on the front page in the sports section, and on page 3 there was another story with me and Red Auerbach. Say, turn on the sound and hear Harold Bell sound off, something like that. See the bell sound off. But that was in itself, man. I decided to take a stand, because we are not all alike. I am different. Even today, I hear these guys talking sports, man. They can't touch me. They're a bunch of cheerleaders, man. They're a bunch of cheerleaders. And Gary, you know this for yourself. 2 years ago, I found there was a scam going on in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
They were doing a thing on Earl Lord, right? I helped get Earl Lord inducted into the Hall of Fame when they blackballed him. I helped get Willie Wood into the NFL Hall of Fame. Now, I am on AM radio, the lowest signal. People say, how did you do that? Because I knew how to use the media. Red Auerbach was a good friend of mine, so I asked Red to team up with me to get Earl Lord into the Hall of Fame. Dick Heller of the Washington News was a good friend of mine. They helped me get Willie Wood into the Hall of Fame. So that is the thing, man, is that I know how I do my homework. Gary would tell you, I will go over story, over story,
Yes.
And I see some things that are happening right here with the media, man. They're killing us softly. They are suppressing our history. We had Gary Mays, a one-armed bandit, a legend in this town, a legend. Played football, basketball, baseball with one arm and held his own. Held Elgin Baylor to 18 points in a championship game, man. Hit a baseball out of Griffith Stadium during a tryout. This guy, when he died, you couldn't find a thing on him in the newspaper. Afro, Informer, Washington Post, USA Today, did absolutely nothing. Roland Fatty Taylor, another guy out of this town, a pioneer. Fatty Taylor come out of Northeast DC, one of my guys, one of my kids. I try to help him get in college, man. We played together. Fatty played in the ABA with Dr. J and Julius Irving. He was the point guard. Went on to become captain with the Denver Nuggets. When he passed, they did not write a thing about him, man. Did not write a thing about him. So when I start talking about the media and how the National Association of Black Journalists, I mean, they're a bunch of bullies and cowards. I remember Louis Farrakhan going to their own convention and calling them out, saying, you're nothing but a bunch of Uncle Toms for white media, and you could hear a mouse piss on cotton. Now, one of them said anything. But they'll get out here like they're somebody, and they'll come after Harold Bell, out of sight, out of mind. But that's the problem. We don't have any media outlets. Kathy Hughes, Urban One, TV One is owned by Comcast. Owned by not Kathy Hughes. She don't own none of those outlets. You never see her do any real sports because Comcast ain't gonna have it. You got to do your homework, folks. You got to do your homework, man. And I tell you, I know that I've been blessed because I'm gonna tell you, I've been blessed because I try to tell the truth. I try to treat people the way that I want to be treated. My wife just sent me a note. I wish I had that note. We spoke at a elementary school a couple of months ago, man, during Black History Month. Little 5th and 6th graders, man, and everybody was shocked the way those kids took to me, And she said she wished she had all the notes that I received from kids all around the world. I was a historian at Ben's Chili Bowl for 6 years, and kids came from all around the world, and I talked to them, and they would send me notes back, man, saying how I had changed their lives. Because I was once there. I was once one of them, and I never forgotten. And I think that's probably what has happened to guys like James Brown and the John Thompsons and the Sugar Ray Leonards, man. They forget. They get out in that world, and I guess the bright lights in big city kind of dim their minds. But, man, I wouldn't do anything over. This guy, Gary, Maggie Linton, who's been with me forever, they know that I'm straight up. I come to them, they can't say, well, damn, I'm suspicious of what Harold just said or that column he just wrote. Because, man, I do my homework. And that's what's happening today. We don't have any media in this town that is going to cover the black community the way it should be covered. When you see guys like Sam Ford, I remember Bruce Johnson used to be, back in his day when he was out in the community, you know what he used to call him, Gary, when they see him? Dr. Death. Somebody was dead in the community when he came out. He was Dr. Death. Same thing with Sam Ford now. Yeah. We don't have great media people. Jim Vance was one of a kind, man. Jim Vance was one of a kind. And I'm gonna tell you this, and we'll get out of here. You see 7 on your side. Now all over the country they're doing consumer things with like 7 on your side. Right. That was my idea. You know how they got that? Paul Berg came on my show one Saturday, and he couldn't believe that all the telephone calls that I was getting, people asking for advice. Can I help them with their job? Can I do this? Paul said, do they call you like that every week? I said, yeah. He came back again and heard the same thing. A month later, started 7 on your side. First to ever do it was Paul Berg. And when Paul Berg left, you couldn't carry 7 on your side with it because it belonged to the station. Yeah. Now they're doing 7 on your side all over the country. Wow. So man, yeah, I've had an impact, and when I get a note from Dr. Harry Edwards. Y'all, do you all know who Dr. Harry Edwards is? He was the architect of the 1968 boycott in Mexico City with John Carlos and Tommy Smith.
A lot of famous pictures on the internet about
That's
that.
right, that's right. And you know what Dr. Harry Edwards sent me a note saying, Harold, your archives belongs in the National Museum of African American History because you told our truth. You told our truth. You know, tried to establish an even playing field. You alone. See, whenever you get that kind of information, but see, they're not gonna put me in the museum because they got the National Association of Black Journalists help them guide who goes in there, you know, or they want you to pay to go in there. I ain't paying to go in there. But I just want to thank everybody, man, for all of these great years, and I hope there are many more to come. Folks out there that think you're fooling me, you know who you are. You're not fooling me. I know who you are. So that's why I keep my distance. Thanks so much to the people at Miracle Theater for giving me an opportunity with my project. I remember Muhammad Ali. We remember Muhammad Ali. And as you know, they established at the Louisville Airport. That airport is now the Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville. So yes, man, my dear brother, man, I love him.
Well, folks, there you have it. This is not the last you're going to hear from Harold Bell, but you just heard 6 parts of the unvarnished truth, giving it to you straight with no chaser from Mr. Harold Bell, DC sports legend. I'm Gary Johnson for BlackMenInAmerica.com and for Mr. Harold Bell, the original Inside Sports, and you will be hearing more from us. Thank you very much.